Welcome to Copper Cat Books, where we're continuing our author series today. I'm excited to chat with Beverly. So welcome, Beverly.
Well, thank you for having me.
So tell us about your book and what it's about. Give us a tease, since I'm not familiar with it.
Really big tease.
Good.
This book is called The Big Lie. It's a coming-of-age book. It's about a young black girl growing up in the 50s in a segregated Midwestern town. And her parents sent her to Amsterdam the year before. And when she returned, her parents were involved in an automobile accident, and both of them were killed. So her paternal grandmother was the one who actually ended up taking care of her. She's kind of a rigid lady, very religious and what have you. And the girl wasn't doing real good in school, so she set her up with this math tutor that lived 2 doors from them. He was just supposed to tutor her in math. Instead, he introduced her to sex. And it went on from that with the teacher. Then she fell in love with this kid, and her grandmother had enough of it, so she talked to her about the importance of her virginity and the importance of her just growing up being a girl. So she pulled some old pictures out of the album that she had about a town called Idlewild, Michigan.
Oh, wow.
So Idlewild, Michigan is a historic black town. It was an old logging camp that was very popular from 1920 to 1960. It went out of grace when integration started. But it was a part of what was along with the Green Book.
Oh, yeah.
That era, because there were places that we couldn't stop and eat, we couldn't go to a restroom, we couldn't sleep at night. So this became our resort, our place of having fun,
Right,
and just
exactly.
relaxing like everybody else. Well, also during that time, it was a great musical era because people like Roy Hamilton, Dinah Washington, Billy Eckstine, Della Reese, all of these people went up to this area during the summer and performed.
Oh, my goodness.
So when they weren't on tour someplace else, you could always find one of these famous stars. Well, the interesting part about all of this is how the actual village came to be was that they sold these lots after they got through logging for $100 a piece. Well, back in the 20s and 30s, $100 was a lot of money.
Yeah, it was a lot of money.
But people bought them like Louis Armstrong.
Oh, he did.
And there was this doctor that was the first black open heart surgeon, William Hale, that was the medical director for Providence Hospital in Chicago. This place became so popular that the railroad ran a special resort line that went from Chicago to Detroit and in Grand Rapids and stopped in Baldwin County, which was the seat of where this town Idlewild was. They had their own post office, they had their own fire department, they had paddle boats that you could go out and paddle. They had the 2 nightclubs. One was called the Fiesta, the other one was called the Paradise. Well, Jasmine, the heroine in my story, her parents met there.
Oh, they did.
So that's where her grandmother brought all of this history into her and really taught her about what she was doing was wrong. But in the process, she and this man got into an argument and she pushed him and he fell and hit his head. He died, but she didn't know at the time that he had died. When her grandmother took her up to Idlewild. But there was a girl that lived across the street. The little girl's name was Maisie. She was a deaf mute, but she was 5 years old, but she could write. And so before Jasmine went up to Idlewild, she taught this little girl how to play jacks.
Oh, wow.
But she also kept getting these notes saying, I saw what you did. And she couldn't figure out where it was coming from, and she just knew somebody had seen her when she pushed this guy. She loved music, and there was a guy that lived on the corner that was kind of like what we call a disc jockey today.
Yeah.
So he played music, and she would hear him when she was walking to school, and she would stop, and she'd listen to a whole realm of music.
Yeah.
And when she was growing up, her father, she loved her father, and the guy really took advantage of her because she did love her father, and she couldn't tell the difference between lust and
Yeah.
love at her age. So that's where we are.
Wow, it sounds like a fascinating tale, actually.
It is a fascinating tale.
Then about Idlewild, did that take some research for you, or is that
Oh.
something you
Well,
already kind of had knowledge of?
I did because my father was actually a musician.
Oh.
At some point, my dad played a bright bass, and he sat in with it at Duke Ellington. He had sat in with Cap Calloway.
Oh my goodness, legends.
I used to tease my dad all the time and ask him, what did you do when you were in the service? And his response was, I played them on the ship and I played them off. So he never really saw any action, but he did actually.
Yeah, but he still
He was a
served.
great musician, and everybody knew him in our hometown, which incidentally is St. Louis.
Oh,
And so I wrote this based on what I knew about St. Louis during that time frame.
yeah.
So that's how this book came about, and there's not a whole lot more to tell about.
No, we don't want to give it all away.
No, we really don't.
We
For
don't.
sure, we don't want
But
to.
I think it's a good. It sounds like so much information, like a little bit of a historical fiction almost, and just sharing history in the United States. I don't think a lot of people in this era now realize that certain individuals, you couldn't just freely stay in whatever hotel you wanted or eat at a restaurant. It was very different.
And I'm old enough to remember that because I'm actually 88.
What? I would not have. Yeah, you did catch me on
Yes, I did.
I would not have
Yeah.
guessed that at all.
I've always written something, even when I was little, roses and red violets and
Yeah.
kind of crazy stuff like that. But mostly, I just always I knew that I had this story inside of me. So interesting because I presented this at a book club of older Christian women. And there are 3 chapters in the book that have some sex scenes in it. And one lady had the nerve to ask me, what were you thinking when you wrote that? And I'm like, well, lady, I'm a retired registered nurse. I worked at a jail at one time.
Yeah.
So I know a lot about life.
Right.
And so I just wrote about the life that I knew. She said, but that was just horrible. I said, well, if you work in a jail and you listen to the prisoners long enough, you'll hear that kind of stuff. I said, in addition to that, the first case of rape that I ever saw was of a 5-year-old girl whose uncle had raped her.
5 years
And I said,
old.
that was when I was a freshman in nursing school. So if I tell you I'm 88 now, that was a long time ago.
No kidding.
And that still sticks in my mind.
Oh, it would
today.
completely stick in your
Right.
heart and on your soul that someone would even.
And we hide a lot of stuff in society. We don't want to talk about things. And I never have quite understood that. And I always talk to young people that have children and tell them, don't teach your children these funny little names for body parts. Tell them what it is.
Right.
Let them know so that they're not surprised when somebody else says something like this today.
Exactly.
So I love to write. I'm working on a second novel. It's historical also, but I can't give it away right now.
No, don't.